It wasn't bad. I was very excited about this talk. Really, until just a couple minutes ago. One of you came up to me and said, just making small talk, said, "Was Bill Nye your real name?" And I said, "Well, it's William Nye." And the guy said, "Well, why did you change it?" It's going to be a long night. No, it's great. It's great to see you all. Thank you so much for including me. What, is it okay or not? Closer to my head? Is that better? Yeah, that is better. Right. I feel like this might be an under reference for some. I feel like Garth Brooks. Is that better, audio-visual guy? It's better, okay. So, are there screens where you guys are looking at images? Okay. Good to know. Our story begins here, well, here in Oklahoma, but on the planet Earth. Now, this is a picture that was taken at the end of October, beginning of November, of the planet Saturn with the Cassini spacecraft, which was launched back in the 1990s. Yeah, okay. Thank you. It was the Cassini spacecraft, which was launched back in the 1990s. It was right after, I guess, Nirvana's third album. And it went out to Saturn, and we took this picture. So those are the rings of Saturn. And right there is the Earth. And I submit to you that there are two questions that we have all asked. Where did we come from? And are we alone? And if you meet somebody who says, "Well, I've never asked those two questions," they're lying. Of course you have. Crying out loud. You grow up on the Earth, you don't wonder if there's somebody out there looking at you, how their basketball team is doing. So I got into this business of space exploration a long time ago. It really started with my father. This is my father. Actually, it's a picture of my father. He was not that tall. And if you don't know, it's a rock hammer. And I know you guys are in school. There's rocks. They're in the background. This picture was taken in Maine, the great state of Maine. And he was quite the rock hammer. Are there any geology people? There must be patrol geology. Yes. And it sounds like there's several over here. And just after the show tomorrow, maybe you'll be able to recognize them easily, because they generally just walk around like this, just hoping to find another rock. Yeah, wow. You go back to their room or their house room, it's just rocks, and they'll explain that this one is different. Well, I picked this one up because this one, it's different, it's totally different, to you and me. They look like rocks. Every rock tells a story. And my father was thinking about geology when he was in college, and he had this idea to marry this woman. I know, kind of hot, I know. But her father would not let them get married until she was graduated from college. My dad was a couple years older. Bad ways. But so my father, then under the pressure of the family, did not remain an Nye boy scientist. He went to law school under family encouragement. We'll call it encouragement. And this is surprising. He didn't like it. And most people love law school. No, apparently he hated it. So he had this great idea to get this job on Wake Island. I've never heard of Wake Island. You go to Hawaii, and then you go about that far again. It's in the middle of Pacific Ocean nowhere, and it's named after a British captain who came across it. I'm sure Polynesian people knew just where it was, but a British guy found it. And we use his name. That's the nature of humans. So Wake Island is very small. It's an atoll. It's a coral reef. And but it's big enough to land airplanes on to it if and only if you have a runway. So my dad was there with these other guys building a runway. In the meantime, seaplanes landed at Wake Island very regularly. This is when if you wanted to go from San Francisco to Shanghai, or anywhere in China, this would be the early days of Asian entrepreneurship, you would take a Boeing flying boat, the Clipper, and you'd stop in Hawaii, Pearl Harbor, and refuel, and you'd stop in Wake and refuel before you went on to Shanghai. If you didn't refuel, you wouldn't get there. There's been a little bit of dispute with my father's comrades about this, but in this picture, my dad was the college kid, so he was the quartermaster. He was in charge of how much fuel the planes received and billing the United Airlines company and so on. But apparently he is here in this picture, if I can use the term, working there, and apparently it was beautiful. It was the tropics. They just stood outside, ran around all day with no shirts on. They'd watch movies outdoors at night, and if it rained, they just kept going because it was so warm and fabulous, and what's not to love. But if you know anything about this part of the world, everything was cool during the summer of 1941. Everything was big fun. But then on December 8th, which was December 7th in Hawaii because of the international dateline, Wake Island's across the international dateline. On December 8th, they were bombed along with Pearl Harbor. And so this, I gotta tell you guys, it's something that you and I, living now, we just can't get. I mean, it was as though the world ended. I mean, when the United States was bombed, I mean, you guys lived through 9/11, which was trouble. Whoa, sorry. Can we turn these monitors down just a little bit? Just a little bit. Because, I mean, sure, it's like a rock concert, but I didn't wear earplugs. Thank you. Anyway, and I'll do my best to modify this thing. So, these guys were bombed. The United States was, if I may, like totally freaking out. My grandmother kept this newspaper, the Evening Star. This is back when big cities had two newspapers. The Washington Post was in the morning, and it was kind of the lesser paper. And then the Evening Star was in the evening. That's where they got the idea for the name. And it was a good value. Just want you to know there, you'll see it's 3 cents back then. And the grown-ups today will go on and on with you about, back in my day, you know, we took Christmas seriously. I mean, now it's an important holiday. Now it's all commercialized. And back when I did it, you know, it was important. Yeah. So, 14 shopping days to Christmas. And they pull that stuff, just call them on it. Now, albeit it's for war bonds. It's for a national effort. But the idea is about the same. So these guys had just disappeared. These people on Wake Island, there were some military people there, but they were mostly civilians. And they fought back for 2 weeks. They sunk a couple Japanese ships. They shot down a bunch of Japanese airplanes. And eventually they were captured on Christmas Eve, 1941. My dad wrote in his diary, saddest day of my life. So they were captured and taken to, at first, to the mainland of China. But no one really knew where they went. I mean, this is before Twitter, it's before Facebook. This is before the internet. I know, yeah, like what did they do all day? Yeah, okay, yeah, they came up with something. Anyway, meanwhile, my mother she went to a place called Goucher College, which is in Baltimore, Maryland, which is back east someplace. Baltimore, but I don't know, yeah, Orioles, Ravens, I don't know. Hopkins or the Blue Jays, not really much, but go Blue Jays. Anyway, back when they had such things, Goucher was the sister school to Johns Hopkins. It was only women. And, you know, then now they let men in, it's going to heck. So, back then, the dean of women, the dean of students at Goucher was Dorothy Stimson, who was the first cousin of the Secretary of War Stimson. And by the way, back then he was called the Secretary of War. Like, they spelled it out. Now he's the Secretary of Defense. Yeah. That's right, yes, we've been fighting this war on the other side of the world for defense. Yeah. 12 years. It's important. Would it change things if we called it the Department of War again? Would people think of it differently? Interesting question. I don't know. So anyway, apparently the Secretary of War said to his first cousin, "Do you have any women that can come work on this thing? I can't tell you what it is." So my mom and 11 other women were recruited to work on the Enigma code. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's famous German code. Woo, Enigma code! Careful. But it was a notorious and infamous thing. And so she was in the Navy for 4 years, full-time, then she was in the reserves. But I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm not trying to be a pig. I'm just asking, just objectively, everybody, who has the best legs? Okay? Stand. I can see where Dad, that would be on his mind. So, by the way, if you get an opportunity to spend 4 years, it was actually, I guess it was 44 months in prisoner of war camp, I would just don't do it. I'd say, don't do it. It sounds like really a drag. I mean, I know it sounds exciting, it's different, but it sounds like it really sucked. So, but my dad lived through this thing. I mean, he lived through 4 years in prison war camp. And at that time, they had no clocks. The Japanese military had confiscated all their watches and all their jewelry. And so my dad, the family myth is, reckoned time with the shadows of sticks. Apparently he would put a shovel handle in the dirt. They had a lot of shovels around, and he would observe the shadow. And there's a family myth, which I cannot verify, that he helped determine the latitude of where they were being transported from one place to another. And this guy, who was not even 5'7", was able to crawl through this vent in a train car and get to Shanghai before the British consulate was abandoned, and tell everybody where these guys were. It's just a crazy thing. But anyway, my father came back fascinated with sundials, and because he was watching the shadows of sticks. So there you'll see in the lower left is the sand dial, my father's invention, copywritten. That's right, you take it to the beach so you don't have to get sand in your watch. Sand dial, sand, get it? Huh? Brilliant, Dad. That is brilliant. That's gonna make like $20. That. And he wrote articles for the newspaper, the Evening Star, about sundials. But it was really when he wrote his book, Sundials of Maryland, Virginia, that's when, yes, people, he was given a lifetime membership in the North American Sundial Society. Yes! Any SS people here? Sundial people, anybody? Now you'll recognize them. You'll see them. They're out there tomorrow. It's moving. The shadow. It's moving. I swear. It's moving. I swear. No, it is an eccentric bunch. I'm a member. And I mention this because it's something that we all take for granted. You can go to the bookstore and get a calendar with puppies. All right? No problem. Yes? You can get a calendar with kittens. You can get a calendar with kittens and puppies. Yes! You can get scenic Oklahoma. Beautiful. You can get, I don't know if this is your thing, for me it's important, you can get either the Broncos or the Seahawks, yes. And ladies, yes, you can get the firefighters with no shirts. Yes, fine. But you know that the calendar is correct. You're not worried about it at all. You go everybody's going to come out right. It's going to look the same as on your computer and your cell phone, and you're not the slightest bit concerned about it. But my friends, if you go outside and mark the position of the sun every day in the sky for a year, you will see that it's low in the winter and high in the summer. Sometimes it's east of an imaginary middle line, and sometimes it's to the west. Now, this time of year, the sun's low in the sky, and it's February. And I hope some of you, there's got to be somebody here with a birthday on the 29th of February. There we go, they represent. But nominally, although you will have orbited the sun another time, your actual date will not come up this year because they don't have one. And we all go, but you will have orbited the sun, if I may, a whole other time. So we all take this for granted. 2012 was a leap year. 28 was a leap year. 04 was a leap year. 2000 was a leap year. Let me ask you this. Was 1996 a leap year? Sure. Was 1900 a leap year? No! Because there's a rule. There's a rule. Now look, imagine this, you guys. You are so powerful. You're in ancient Rome. You're so powerful. How powerful are you? That's close, sir. Thank you. That's a little out of sync there, but it's good. Appreciate it. You're so powerful. Yeah, how powerful are you? Yes. You're so powerful that you say, I want my own month. I want my own month. And I want my month in the summertime when it's nice in Italy. And you have to give it to me because I'm Julius Caesar. Right? And so the high priest, who was some guy who worked for the government, or sort of, said, okay, so then the other guy comes along, Augustus Caesar, and he wants his own month too, also in the summer. So it used to be September, the 7th month, October was the 8th month, November 9, December 10th. They all got pushed over because Julius and Augusta wanted their own freaking months. Can you imagine? I'm President Obama. I want my own month. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Have a nice day. But we take it for granted. And so these Roman astronomers in ancient times realized, they created the leap day, which is photometric calibration. It's a test pattern for the cameras. You point the camera at it to keep from getting the colors wrong. Point the camera at it and look at these coupons of silicone rubber which have been cooked till they stop fading. Apparently the pigment is real bright, and you cook it for a while and it fades and it stabilizes. And this is in a thermal vacuum chamber, a T-vac chamber, where they get it hot and cold in a vacuum, and they have this metal post sticking up. It's an actual size about that big. It's an aluminum stick. So the plan is to send this aluminum stick all the way to Mars to get the colors right. And if you look at the shadow, it's the same light bulb as in your oven in your dorm or at home or whatever. The shadow is quite yellow because that light bulb, that incandescent light bulb, has a lot of yellow in it. And we did not have a word for this in English, so I was forced to make it up. The yellow shadow we have xanthidescence. Xanthidescence. Come on, people, it starts with an X. Come on. Sexy. Come down here. So after a few minutes, I'm in this meeting looking at this metal stick all the way to Mars, and my first thing, I worked at Boeing for a while. Don't worry, I was very well supervised. Worked at Boeing, and you're never supposed to add weight to the airplane. That's evil. You're never supposed to do anything that would make it heavier. You're supposed to always drill more holes in it and make it lighter. So carefully. And so
they said, no, we got to have this. We got to get the colors right. It was a huge problem back in the 70s. We don't want to have this problem. And my father's history came rushing back to me. My childhood, everything I'd ever been exposed to. I said, you guys, we've got to make the photometric calibration target into a sundial. And they're looking at me like, Bill, Mr. Nye. It's Mr. Nye, right? Because, we all have PhDs. Anyway, Mr. Nye, you call us doctor. Mr. Nye, we don't tell time with a sundial. It's a space program. Bill, I see you're wearing a watch. No, you guys, it'll be cool. Come on, we can reckon time on another world. How cool is that? It'll be like the guys who speak Klingon. and they are almost all guys. Yes. It'll be like those guys, except it'll be real. So, my friends, Steve Squires, principal investigator, head guy, was okay. So there are now sundials on Mars. This is Husband Hill, named after Rick Husband, one of the guys killed in the Columbia wreck. And if you look at this picture, it looks like a place. You just go there and walk around. You want to be dressed properly. It's cold there. I'm not sure it's as cold as it was here last week. But it's very cold there. And you got to take water. It's a camping trip. You got to take water and food. And also, take something to breathe. If you go there, you will notice that right away. That'll be the first thing, really. And then, so if you look in the lower right of this picture, there's the Mars dial, as we call it. Happy little sundial on Mars. It's one on Spirit and Opportunity. Opportunity's still rolling. Spirit is right on. So by the way, right on, plus the Opportunity rover. It's been there 10 years. It was supposed to run 3 months. It's gone 40 times longer than the warranty. Imagine you buy a car, you buy a car with a 3-year warranty, and then you have to drive it for 120 years to get it to equal this rover with no maintenance. Not so easy. But the Spirit rover is not running anymore, but I'll bet you the Mars dial is still casting a shadow. I'll bet you. Maybe one of you will go check it out. And the Curiosity rover, which landed in August of a year ago, 2 years, going on a year and a half ago. There is a self-portrait. We took the Mars, the hand imager lens and pointed at the spacecraft and took a bunch of pictures and electronically eliminated the arm itself. And then right there's the Mars dial, right there, casting a shadow. And when you look at it up close, if you happen to have a camera on Mars, there it is, casting a shadow. And these have this one has the motto, "To Mars to Explore." See, if my dad were here, he'd tell you sundial should have a motto. It should give you something to think about. Like it will say, I only count the sunny hours. Well, yeah, there's sundial. If you go to some hippie school, like in Oregon or something, it will say, light for the shadow. Dude, that is so out there. And then it's not uncommon in France. This is where they had existentialism and commune and the stranger and all that. It says, every hour injures. The last hour kills. Oh, thanks to the sunny day. That's great. That's really nice. The whole existentialism, life sucks, and then you die. Anyway, the Spirit and Opportunity would have a cool motto. It's 2 worlds, 1 sun. It's kind of cool. Anyway, if you look closely at this picture, we did not have a word for this, but there's some shadow filled in with light from the Martian sky. There it is. Orangenescence. Yes, a tinge of orange. So, as you may know, 6 weeks ago, we took a picture of this place on Mars, and is all broken up and orange, rust colored from the orange oxide that's in the Martian surface. And then in the frame, a few days later, was this white rock, which we whimsically call the jelly donut. There it is right there. And there's another little piece of it down there. And just a couple days ago, about 5 days ago, the mystery was solved. People thought that, sure enough, a wheel of the rover had knocked off a rock and it tumbled down the hill, and that's what happened when the rover was pivoting. But there was a lot of speculation that maybe, not crazy, maybe the rock rolled into the frame because Mars got hit with a meteor. Not crazy. So if you look at Mars, this is a picture from orbit of Mars. This is the path of the Curiosity rover. You can see that there are craters. Like there's a crater. There's a crater. There's a crater. Another crater. A crater. A crater. Craters. There's more craters. There's craters in craters. There's craters. And there's thousands of craters just in that one little spot. So it is quite reasonable that what happened on Mars happens on the Earth. Now, when I was in school, back in the 1970s, my old professor, Carl Sagan, guys, I'm not Carl Sagan's star student, okay? There's some guy like in a room like this. He talked a lot about the Tunguska event. For those of you unfamiliar with the Tunguska event, this is in Siberia, 1908. As reckoned in the modern calendar, there's a lot of people living in Russia at that time that were on the Orthodox, the Julian calendar, even then, not having anything to do with the Catholic Church and their crazy leap days and all that stuff. But it was in the modern calendar, the 30th of June, 1908. And this is where trees were blown down in all directions. It was so remote, how remote was it? Nobody was up there to even take a black and white picture of the place for a year. Trees were blown down everywhere. No one could really explain it at first, and they realized it must have been something from outer space. So have you ever heard this idea that, if you jump off a really high bridge and hit the water's like concrete, it'll kill you instantly? That's kind of true, actually. I've never tried it, but it sure seems like that would be a problem. No matter how you dive or hold your hands, or that, it's not going to help you if it's too high. So if you're a rock coming into the Earth's atmosphere at, say, 20 kilometers a second, you hit the atmosphere, the air can't get out of the way, so you explode. You are an air burst. And so that's what happened in Tunguska. You guys were all alive last year on Valentine's Day in Russia. In Chelyabinsk, it was hit with another airburst. There were all these dashboard cameras running because there's so much insurance fraud there. Everybody's a camera in their car. And here goes this thing streaking across the sky. Everybody goes, wow, cool. They run up to the windows to see what else is going on. And 3 minutes later, the sonic booms hit the ground. Blow out all the windows, 1,000 people go to the hospital. I mean, it's a real thing. You see, if you're a meteorite, you're going to hit North America, you're going to hit the northern hemisphere. There's a good chance you'll land in Russia. Because it used to be 11 time zones, now it's just 9 times as big. And really, 1,000 people in the hospital don't get killed, that's pretty lucky. That same 24-hour period, there was another asteroid, the 2012 DA-14, came between us and our global positioning satellites. If that thing had hit the Earth, would have been in trouble. So there's city killers and county killers. We go to measure asteroids. City killers, county killers, country killers, continent killers, and then sort of world enders. So when I was in second grade, Mrs. McGonigal, I had her first and second grade. She read to us from a book about the ancient dinosaurs. And she explained, and she was plenty of she was doing what the company told her to do, okay? She was working for the public schools. The ancient dinosaurs had small brains, So the mammals took all their food and they died. And even she knew that was just, come on. Okay, I'm a Tyrannosaurus, you're a rabbit. And she knew that was just lame. So in my lifetime, you guys, when I was a grown-up paying taxes, I had a job and all that stuff. People discovered the crater off Chicxulub, Mexico, that is almost certainly the crater of the impactor that wiped out the ancient dinosaurs. And that was in my life. We had a crummy theory, now we have a great theory. It happened like that. People were looking for oil, and they found this ring of magnetic, a line of magnetism within the rocks on the seafloor. And they discovered this. So this thing was so big that the Earth knocked ejected material into the sky, and the diameter of the ejecta was bigger than the Earth. So the Earth was surrounded by red-hot rock for a few days or weeks. It set the world on fire, and unless you lived underground or in a cave and so on, you really had a hard time. Either that afternoon, when the whole place was set on fire, or in the coming weeks and months when you couldn't find anything to eat. It's really troubling. We don't want to go the way of the ancient dinosaurs. At least I don't. So it's going to be up to you guys. You have come of age at a moment in history when we can deflect an asteroid. I'm not kidding. You are the first generation that can prevent the only preventable natural disaster. So I want you to get that. So how would you do that? Bruce Willis is a good first idea, but you don't want to send Bruce Willis's character. Blow the thing up. I'm sorry, ladies, this is just not the right guy for this. You don't want to blow it up, because then you're going to have a shower of this stuff that can be even more destructive and more trouble, like the one that you missed. So people propose we'll go to land there with a spaceship, and we'll just nudge the effort. Just a little push. Because it's a four-dimensional problem. You've got the Earth, which has got north, south, east, and west, up and down, and then you've got the asteroid, and then you have time. You wanted the asteroid to cross the Earth's orbit, but we're not there. That's the idea. So you go up there, you park, you turn on your rocket motor. Except it's in outer space, so it's just me. And just imagine a little bit. Well, they tell you, you probably couldn't get enough fuel to do it. It's just too much mass. It would take too much fuel. People have proposed sending another spaceship that's got so much xenon on board, xenon fuel, that just the mutual gravity would tug the thing. But you need a huge amount of xenon. But we, at the Planetary Society, have an idea for you. The laser beams. So little spaceships with solar panels on them, and we run lasers, and we beam the laser at the rock, and it volatilizes and evaporates the surface of the rock, and the ejected material has enough momentum to just nudge the rock. If the thing's going 20 kilometers a second, we just need to change its velocity 2 millimeters a second. Just 1/10,000,000th of its total momentum. Just so you guys, it is very reasonable that in your lifetime somebody's going to find an asteroid with our name on it. And it's going to be up to you, engineers, political science majors, international relations majors, venture capitalists, artists, everybody is going to work together to inspire the people of the world to do something about it. This is really an extraordinary problem. We're speaking to TED and TED. These are the world's smartest people, or so they tell me. They like the asteroid. Now, the Chelyabinsk last year, tell me, it doesn't take much to cause a lot of trouble. Suppose it lands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and we destroy all of China, all the seacoast of China, Japan, all of Seattle, all the way to Peru. I mean, it would change the world's economy in a catastrophic way, let alone what would happen to the weather and the climate and everything else when you go knocking most of the ocean into the sky. So this is where we make discoveries on other planets that affect the way we conduct our business on our planet. This is a picture of Mars, taken by the cutest little Sojourner rover. Oh my gosh, it was so cute. Right around in 1997. And this is, yeah, it was after the bomb was Pearl Jam was tearing it up right there. And so we measured the composition of the Martian atmosphere. And the Martian atmosphere is 0.7% of the Earth's atmosphere. The Earth's atmosphere has 1 atmospheric pressure. Mars is oh wow, I just jolted this, excuse me. Mars is 0.7% of that. So in the good old days, like 15 years ago, we would say the atmosphere was 7 millibars. But millibars are not a system international unit. They have 100,000 in them, they're not 1,000, they're not 1,000,000, they're in between. So the official unit now is a hectopascal. What kind of unit is hectopascal? It just doesn't roll off the tongue. So I want you guys to call them HEPS. 7 HEPS. The Earth's atmosphere is 1,000 HEPS. Mars is just 7. So these data are from back in the day. This is the composition of the Earth's atmosphere compared to the composition of the Martian atmosphere. The Martian atmosphere is 95% carbon dioxide. There's not much of it, just 7 HEPS. But most of it is carbon dioxide. The Earth's atmosphere in the 1990s was rounded to 1 digit, was 0.03%, which is the same as 300 parts per million. It's the same number. 300 parts per million is 0.03%. Everybody here was alive when that number changed from 0.03 to 0.04. Everybody here was alive when the Earth's atmosphere went to 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide. This tiny change in what seems like an insignificant part of the Earth's atmosphere is changing the world. And we, and you especially, are going to have to deal with it. You are going to have to work together to, dare I say it, change the world. If we go to Venus, it's now Roscosmos, the Soviet space agency, landed a couple spacecraft on the surface of Venus in the 1980s. The Venusian atmosphere, oh, by the way, we call it Venusian, the Venusian atmosphere. In the 19th century, the adjective that had to do with, had the characteristics of, or pertained to Venus was venereal. So we had to coin a new word, Venusian. It's the planet of love. Oh. No, they thought that Venus, the goddess, lived there. You know, she had some nymphs and there were sprites and their thing. But the Venusian atmosphere is 90 Earth atmosphere, 90,000 HEPS, all carbon dioxide, crushing down. There's so much carbon dioxide. How much is there? If you were on the surface and you had your fishing weights, they would melt. Lead would melt. And wait, there's more. The clouds on Venus are made of sulfuric acid. What? Yes, sulfuric acid. And it rains sulfuric acid, but the rain doesn't hit the ground. It evaporates before it gets to the surface. Did you guys, I hope you played this game when you were younger, especially, where you can't step on the floor because it's like lava. And you can't drink this water because it's like acid. Well, on Venus, it's really like that. Okay? Venus is, by sort of Western reckoning, just like hell. We do not want to be Venus. Venus is where the greenhouse effect, the phenomenon where certain gases hold the heat, where that phenomenon has run away. The runaway greenhouse effect in Venus is just crazy hot. Very difficult thing to undo. So we don't want to be Venus. When you look at a picture like this is the International Space Station. Actually, it's a picture of the International Space Station. It's in space and so on. It looks like, am I going too fast? Yeah, so it looks like the Earth is out of focus. But the Earth isn't really out of focus. That's the atmosphere. That's the Earth's atmosphere, right there. If we had some extraordinary car on some extraordinary road, and we could drive straight up, we'd be in outer space in barely an hour, in Oklahoma about 45 minutes of highway driving. We'd be in outer space. It's right there. Outer space is much closer than Tulsa. Not that you're in a hurry to go to Tulsa, but it's right there. And so we have to appreciate that when you have this many people trying to make a living on the Earth, we can affect the atmosphere. This is a famous graph that depicts the temperature of the world over the last 1,000 years. And the temperature of the world is as computed by looking at tree rings, by looking at bubbles of ice. By the way, look, you guys, what would you be doing if you weren't here? That's right, you'd be watching CSI, or I guess Stillwater. Did they have CSI Stillwater? They will. I'm sure they have CSI Oklahoma City, I just haven't found it. If you find bubbles of ice buried 2 miles down in Antarctica, those bubbles are from the ancient atmosphere. They're trapped in snowflakes that gets crushed down and turns to ice. There's nobody running around with a hypodermic needle squirting ice into the bubbles into the ice. So this is the graph. It's called the hockey stick. The shaft of the hockey stick will be represented by this brown line, and then the blade of the stick is this thing. So everybody, it's not whether or not the world used to have more carbon dioxide and it used to be warmer. It's the speed at which it's changing. It's the rate at which the world is getting warmer. That's the hassle. So you can read about this. It just came out in paperback. The hockey stick of the climate wars written by Michael Mann. Full disclosure, I wrote it before. I mentioned this to you guys because we are in Oklahoma, all right? And you have a notorious guy. What I want you to appreciate is Oklahomans, your vote counts more than most people's votes. I'm not kidding. It's not just because you're so cool, which would be appropriate. Don't get me wrong. But you have just 3 million people, 3.8 million people voting for senators. Your vote is worth 10 times what a vote in California is. Your vote is worth 5 times what a vote in New York is worth. So I encourage you all to vote. So Senator Inhofe says Michael Mann, a hockey stick, has been totally discredited. I gotta say, Senator Inhofe, that's absolutely wrong. I am discrediting your discredit. What I believe the senator was referring to was not the word discredited, but revised. Yes, they've done the same guys, Michael Mann and his colleagues, have done the same research. Now they go back not 1,000 years, but 10,000 years. And here's where you find that the world was warmer than it is now. The world had more carbon dioxide than it does now. But it's the speed. So that little brown line is the hockey stick from the previous graph. But now we go back a long way, and Michael Mann and his colleagues call this a sickle. The sickle, the scythe, for harvesting wheat when the wind comes sweeping down the plain. You can see, it smells sweet, if you're not familiar. And you can see, when you look at it at this scale, the world is getting warm at an extraordinary speed. And this is what you all are going to have to deal with. This is where you all are going to have to work together, dare I say it, change the world. Now, let's talk about your guy a little bit more. Changing to more energy efficient light bulbs is fine to do, but so not apply with the inverted climate disaster by these actions is absurd. Let's run some numbers, okay? Potential light bulb energy saved in Oklahoma. Let's say we have, instead of 100-watt light bulbs, we have 17-watt light bulbs, light emitting diodes, compact fluorescent. In Oklahoma, we have about 3.8 million electric customers. If every customer is running the equivalent of about 8 light bulbs, which is quite conservative, look at these right here, just for example. You're saving 2.5 megawatts. This is not rocket surgery, okay? This is arithmetic. And this is a very hard thing. The first thing, it's a very hard thing for most people to grasp. But if millions of people make small changes, it has a big effect. In this case, we're just talking about light bulbs. We're not talking about furnaces and cars and heating, ventilation, air conditioning. We're not talking about street lights. We're not talking about trains. We're just talking about light bulbs. Millions of watts of energy for free. All you got to do is change the light bulb, and somebody's going to be in the business of making that light bulb. And those people in that business might, dare I say it, get rich. What's not to love? So in 1964, I was a little kid. Went to the World's Fair in New York City. And this is a picture of the fairgrounds today. I took it a few weeks ago, I guess a couple months ago, from a car on a rainy day. And this is, if you watch the Men in Black, this is where they hang out. I didn't see any evidence of them. But back then, really? No, it's a fictional movie. Back then, they had this cool map, the total award depicting the population of the U.S. And the population of the U.S. in 1964 was 192, almost 193 million people. Well, today, as of this morning, the U.S. has, by the U.S. reckoning, U.S. Census reckoning, almost 318 million people. Around the corner from